Okay, welcome to part two. I'm John Kraft.
Erica Fernhaber, Shelby County Treasurer.
Kirk Allen, we're here with the Edgar County Watchdogs. With the county treasurer is going to be able to give some insight to some of the things we found in this police report interviews and some of the inconsistencies. And it's important that the public understands what's really happening, you know, both from the state police side of things as well as what went on within that county and the people raising the flag and how it was ignored. They interviewed the former state's attorney, Gina Vanderhyde, on the 21st of May in 2020. And that started at 11:37 a.m. Remember that, that's an important time. And we highlighted some of these points. Now, this one starts on page 115 of the documents that we'll publish with each of these videos. They asked Vanderhyde about a FOIA request with the Shelby County Sheriff's Office, which was one of ours, as well as one of the treasurers. And Vanderhyde advised the Sheriff's Office appeared to have been overpaying employees. Appeared to have been. Were they overpaying employees?
They were overpaying employees.
It was pretty clear. And they put in here there were deputies working 80 hours one week and 60 hours the next, and the time to pay ratio was not accurate. Well,
I think she meant 80 hours one pay period, 60 hours the next.
Right. And that's what we identified through the FOIAs. And the FOIA, he admitted, the sheriff, former sheriff, admitted they were paying people for not working. How that ever happened was beyond comprehension. Well, we later found out how it happened is when they changed the schedules, and we'll get into that in the sheriff's interview report. But yeah, the state's attorney knew there was a problem. You know, they were working 80 and getting paid for 60.
And 60 getting paid for 80.
Yeah. Vanderhyde said the deputies are paid according to the FOP contract that states they shall work 5-hour shifts. Was that true?
No.
Well,
Shall work 5 8-hour shifts.
The contract says they shall work 5 8-hour shifts.
well, there's a lot of questions with this statement.
Yeah, but they were not working 8-hour shifts. Apparently, they were working 10-hour shifts starting in January 2015.
Right.
But we have no timesheets in Shelby County, so could not prove that.
And there were times when they were working, 60 hours, getting paid for how much?
Correct. The 4-on, 4-off schedule created 4 weeks at 40 hours, 4 weeks at 30, 4 weeks at 40, 4 weeks at 30, and it just kept going.
So they were basically getting paid for 70 as an average.
Average, yeah.
Or getting paid for 80 but only working 70.
Correct.
Yeah, okay.
But within this, multiple questions that the state police didn't ask, you know, paid according to the contract. There's so many wrong parts of this whole process. McCall said they were salary. Well, they weren't salary. They were hourly. The forensic audit proved they weren't getting paid properly according to the contract. But she says they were getting paid according to the contract.
If she says they're getting paid according to contract, you'll read in the next page that she struggles to understand whether they're considered salary or hourly. So if she doesn't understand salary or hourly, how can she know that they're getting paid according to the contract?
Well, didn't you see their question on that? I'm being sarcastic, I'm sorry. State police never addressed that question. It was Vanderhyde's understanding that Sheriff Kuntz was first aware of the payroll discrepancy. He told the Edgar County Watchdogs it was an issue that would be corrected. John, we met with him in his office. Did he say it was going to be corrected?
No, he said he's never read the contract.
Right.
Has no idea what it says.
No idea. And I said, you signed it. I looked him square in the eye and I said, you signed it. How could you not know what's in it? Are you telling me you signed a document and you didn't even read it? Well, I was told to sign it by the state's attorney. That's what Shelby County elected as their sheriff. A guy that would sign a document like that and never even read it. And then the state police say Sheriff Kuntz told Vanderhyde employees worked according to the salary schedule and the hours and pay would average out over time. Where do you start with this?
I don't know how it can average out when you have so many weeks that aren't even 40 hours. I mean,
Right.
how does it average out unless they're working, or 70 hours one week and not getting paid for overtime, but they have to be paid for overtime for a 70-hour week. There's no way it can average out unless you're not paying them overtime.
But the state police never followed up with anything to validate the statement that they put in this report. At least there's no evidence of it in here.
No.
Says Vanderhyde stated that Kuntz implemented a schedule where deputies work for 5 10-hour shifts.
And then she says 3 days off, and that's.
So now they're on 5
No,
10s and 3?
well, they weren't.
So that's not accurate.
That's not accurate.
Okay. Vanderhyde suggested the county board chair a forensic audit to evaluate their overall payments. I may be mistaken, but I thought we were the ones that screamed for a forensic audit.
Well, she might have to the county board in closed session, who knows?
I don't know. We've heard a lot about closed session. We've not heard that one, but possibly. This one is rather unique. Vanderhyde advised she had previously had a conversation with the state police master sergeant Mike Campbell and asked him to look at the case. Now, you had meetings with Gina before you ever went to the state police, correct?
I went to Gina with some information,
And that was when Ed Flynn was still there.
and Ed Flynn had called when he caught wind of, he contacted me in February, I believe it was February 13th of 2020, and asked me if I'd put pencil to paper, said yes, and he and I pretty much came up with the same numbers with the 4 on 4 off, which averaged out that deputies were probably working 1,820 hours a year instead of the 2,080 that the contract calls for.
Wow. And his recommendation,
Ed Flynn made the comment to me, Erica, you need an investigation into your sheriff. So that's what I did.
so you basically followed the advice that you were given from the people you at that time thought was your legal counsel.
From Ed Flynn. And that was after he had told me in December of 2019 when I met with Ed and Gina. And I had already FOIA requested the documentation because the sheriff's department wouldn't provide it. And he told me then I had absolutely no right to FOIA and I had to pay whatever they told me to pay. But then it came out in January that this whole shift thing with the 4 on 4 off. So 2 months later, after he's telling me I have no right to question, 2 months later he's telling me we need a state police investigation. Or an
Right.
investigation.
Right.
And I had already contacted the state police.
This is the other statement they wrote in here, and this is typical of these folks. We see this pretty regular, but it says, Vanderhyde explained to him, to the agent, it appeared to be a system-wide failure, and she did not believe Don, the sheriff, had been purposely overpaying deputies. Did she ever question deputies or whistleblowers or anybody? You have a whistleblower program in Shelby County, right?
No, we do not.
Wait a minute, are you sure?
Well, we tell the state of Illinois that we do, but we do not have a whistleblower.
We'll save that for another time. Appeared to be a system-wide failure. That statement in itself, I recall in the forensic audit, didn't we go to meetings, John, where they were arguing over doing countywide?
Yeah.
They wanted a countywide forensic audit, and they said, no, let's narrow it to the sheriff's office and see where we are at. Let's see what we get out of that.
Well, they know where they're at and they haven't expanded it at all.
11,808 hours paid that were never worked. And everybody seems to keep overlooking that point made by the forensic auditor.
Well, and it's not a system-wide failure when the payroll department is begging for timesheets to validate pay. The treasurer's office didn't fail.
Well, there's no question of that.
What does she say about the firearms?
She doesn't remember the specifics of the conversation with McCall, but said if he asked her about the disposal or selling of the firearms, she likely said, okay. How many years have we been saying, says who with what proof? Give us a statute that gives you the power to do something, and she's saying, oh, I would have said it's okay. This reminds me of the affidavit she filled out in the Ed Flynn case, where she says, oh, I hired him. We have recordings where she acknowledges she didn't hire him. The county board did, and they admit it was a mistake in closed session. But here she says she would have likely said it's okay. She doesn't need to be practicing law if that's her position, in our opinion. because it's not okay, the law forbids it. She doesn't believe it was ever posed to her for there to be an employee auction for purchasing of firearms. Does she not know the county code that she's supposed to be representing the sheriff on? What was that? They're not allowed to participate in a sale? What would it matter if it was a public auction or not?
3-6026 of the county's code.
Yeah, the inconsistencies again and lack of questioning is just amazing. You know, follow-up by the state police should have been, are you aware, Ms. Vonderheide, that the county code forbids sales of stuff like this? She tries to minimize it. In judici, they say that a weapon was forfeited. So she says she made a mistake, or may have made a mistake, and put firearm versus firearms as in plural. Vanderhyde said she would provide with a copy of the order. Well, there was no court order. We've asked for that.
Exactly.
She could never produce it. So where's the state police follow-up to say, Ms. Vanderhyde, where's the order on the disposition of the guns? That never happened. It never happened because there was no order and there was no follow-up by the state police. How many times did the state police contact you about these after your initial interview?
Just the once.
One time.
I believe so, when they interviewed me, and I had sent them a whole lot of documentation. I met with them in the beginning, gave them documentation, and then they interviewed me after they did their big whopping 3 interviews.
It is mind-boggling. They went into, and I don't believe this was part of your complaint, so I'm not sure where the state police got tipped on this other than we wrote about it. She talks about Vonderhyde and her overpayments to herself. She gave herself a raise when she came in office. And she says she requested a line item budget for the office. Who does it, help me out here, John. State's attorney. They have a budget. Who are they requesting a line item for their own budget from?
From their self.
So she requested a line item budget for the office. The state police should have said, who'd you request that from, ma'am? I mean, it makes no sense. The state's attorney makes her own budget and the county board either approves or disapproves it. One of the line items was the state's attorney's salary, which was an even number. So she assumed that was the amount she was to be paid. So we have a state's attorney that goes around making assumptions. That's encouraging. She estimated the number to be $131,000 to $133,000. She didn't ask about the salary prior to entering office.
Who cares?
At some point, this is Shelby County. Would the auditor call this the Shelby County Shuffle?
Shelby County Special.
Special, the Shelby County Special. The salary was brought before the Fees and Salary Committee. Vonderhyde's actual salary was $128,900. It's actually set by law. One of the board members, I wish I knew who this board member was, state police should have asked that, said it was not her fault and suggested she should not have to pay the overpayment back to the county. Vonderhyde said she'd pay the money back because it was the right thing to do, and she paid it back before the end of her second term. What's that constitute, John?
An illegal loan.
It's an illegal loan.
Did she
Period.
pay interest?
No. And then she closes it out with, she advised the state police that the Edgar County Watchdog posted an article stating she was 18 cents behind on the payment. But Vonderhyde did not have knowledge of that being true. We posted all the documents. All you had to do is math. How could she not be familiar with whether it was true or not?
18 cents. I got the feeling that the article wasn't about the 18 cents. It was about the loan and the repayment schedule and paying herself too much.
And that was prior to me being in office. I just would like to say, because we would have never allowed that as the payroll department.
Right.
Under my watch.
And it's amazing that the prior treasurer allowed it to happen. I mean, that's just mind-boggling. But all that aside, the interview was concluded at 12:01.
45 minutes.
So 11:37 to 12:01. That sums up
40 minutes.
the interview with the leading law enforcement agency of the county, who recognized a countywide problem. And what did she do?
Nothing.
Nothing. Stay tuned for part 3.